The golden flow depth Texas EO, lift away into the Cleo, swinging round and round, it's all good, no golden age we feel.
So many things have happened in the past, I say. I used to think I was the problem till I found my way. It was a uphill battle every moment, all day. Clarity, a distant cousin on the horizon, okay? I felt alone all the time, no matter who I was with. The enemy inside, spreading the lies and myths around my head with the deepest, darkest fears I held, making my world so cold, the wind blowing like hell.
The Golden Age that we discussed earlier, we sort of left off basically outlining the arrival of the Saturnian system of planets into the solar system, and we briefly touched upon the appearance or the ejection of matter from Saturn as a brown sub-brown dwarf star of extra matter, which later on would become the planet Venus. And this, of course, mythology tells us would behave like a comet, menacing the Earth and various other planets in time. But essentially, if we pick up from where the Saturn has flared, its plasma sheath has dissipated, and humans that have survived that particular sort of period or whatever are confronted basically with a very new sky. They're able to see stars, they're able to see an encroaching sun. And I think when you're looking at what was the Golden Age from most people's perspective, they tend to just simply see it in its social political terms, a time of bliss, a time of lack of want and so on. But under this scenario, the Golden Age is an age permeated with catastrophic events, and its end comes in the most catastrophic of them all, which has gone down in history as a deluge or doomsday. And it's this doomsday, you could call it an archetype, but this doomsday event that is so ingrained in humans at the end of the Golden Age that really provides much of the impetus towards what later on I call the Saturn death culture of things. But so we probably really need to understand life in the Golden Age as it probably was, as opposed to some of the more sort of cursory understandings of this time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you consider the Golden Age, as I said, people have this idea that it was a time of bliss and plenty, and really what had happened was that under Saturn, before its arrival in the solar system, Earth enjoyed one season throughout the world. It was like a perpetual spring. Things grew and it was nice, but it was dark. It wasn't exactly a very pleasant time as we would see it today. Humans at the time wouldn't have known anything different, but nonetheless it was nothing like we know today. The overriding effect on humans is no ability to calculate time. This was a crucial distinction between Earth under Saturn during the Purple Dawn period and Earth under Saturn as it entered into the solar system. And it's this element of being able to tell time that provoked humans to basically understand that they could measure things, that they could set about making maps and such. Basically, time is a measure. And what we know from mythology, of course, is that the god Saturn is linked very much with, it's the same as the Greek god Kronos. And it is, in fact, a god that is most associated with time.
Mm.
Now, there are people out there say this is one of the classic mistakes that people make, which is basically a blunder of making an etymological connection between two words, chronos spelled with a K and chronos spelled with a CH, which we get our word chronometer, meaning, like the watch you wear on your wrist and so on and such. But in fact, it's not a blunder. a lot of authorities say that there is actually definite connection between these terms, and in fact the myths show that Kronos with a K actually was involved very much in the introduction of the concept of time.
Well, absolutely. Just a quick here from my perspective. Crown, krona, even in Swedish we have. This means,
Right.
it's a circular thing. It's a cycle. This is the pivotal aspect of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And so basically, this is what happens in the Golden Age. Is that basically an immature understanding of the Golden Age is kind of time of bliss, no work. Fish jump into your frying pans and fruit falls from the trees into your mouth, and nobody yells at you for being late to work because there's no work to be done. All right, and it sounds wonderful and such, and people a lot of people, and you see elements with this even in the evangelical Christianity, this desire to go back to a life without challenge, basically, and such. And this is an understanding that some people have of the Golden Age. The mature understanding is that Saturn is the god of time, and this is the first time that mankind, when Saturn flares at the beginning of this Golden Age, its rings come into existence, and the encroaching light of the sun shining on these rings, a collection of ice crystals, produces a crescent as the Earth revolves on the Saturn. If you have the encroaching sun coming from the ecliptic, if you have the encroaching sun shining at you and you can see the sun at midday, then the rings of Saturn will be most illuminated above what looks like the head of the planet Saturn. Mm-hmm. And at midnight, when you swing around, when the Earth rotates and the encroaching sun is on the other side of the planet, these illuminated rings will appear to be under the thing. So they basically, this crescent of the rings travels, the illuminated part travels around rhythmically around the body of Saturn at this time. And this is a fundamental change for humanity, because it allows them to calculate time. And with the calculating of time also comes the understanding of weights and measures. The penny drops amongst humans that basically weights, measures, and means of creating a rule, by like a ruler, are established. And of course, this leads to rules. And so, essentially, the Golden Age represents a time where the introduction of the concept of the rule of law comes into play.
Very important.
All right?
Yeah.
Very important, okay? Now, what's doubly important to that is standardizing those rules, those laws and those rules, and those weights and measures. And so essentially a golden age really becomes a time when there is a great blossoming of knowledge in that you can measure the space around you. You can adapt to your world and map it and come to understand great swathes of it without actually having to be there, because you have these weights and measures. You can also interact with other human beings and have trust, because you have a standard weight and measure governing how you deal with these people. All right, so you get basically the beginnings of the concept, not just of trade, but people being able to trust in their trade. And this really, the Golden Age, which, for instance, in the Bible, is for many people is the beginning of the world, really should be understood as the beginning of civilization, where human beings are developing systems by which they can interact with each other and have a frame of reference. And I think that what we see as a result of this are the first, blossomings of these cultures, these civilizations, where stone becomes the building blocks for which mankind sets his rules down. Hence the idea, laws written in stone.
Yes.
And it's my opinion. There's probably more to it and so on, but the pyramid and such, which I believe were built after the deluge and such, are they're legacies of an attempt to
preserve this?
preserve, encrypt laws that were formulated during the Golden Age that made life so much easier, that created this blossoming of civilization. They were an attempt to basically, as you say, preserve them and such. But prior to that, when you get to the older stuff, the standing stones of Europe and various other parts of the world and so on like that, I think their primary purpose is trying to find these these common measures and such for both mapping out the world and also for human interaction. The rule of law, basically, and such. So
does this mean the written, potentially a starting point of the written language as well, and we go from oral law or telling stories over to that? Or what do you think?
No, I actually do believe that at that time human beings practiced their memory more, and that basically they were happy to preserve whatever principles and standards they had created. They were happy to preserve it in stone and such, but that basically the emphasis was on the oral tradition. And there's a good reason why I say this, because what I believe happened was that at the end of the Golden Age, which we'll get to in terms of the deluge, you have what's known as the Silver Age. There's that progression using the elements of gold, silver, bronze, and iron. And it's in the Silver Age that you get the advent of writing. But writing, while it seems like a blessing, is a double-edged sword. And I'll just read the Egyptian god Thoth was basically responsible for creating writing according to mythology. And I can't remember what the name of the guy is who's sort of talking to him. Tamus, that's right. A mythological king of Egypt, reproaches Thoth for the supposed gift of writing, because he says, for this invention will produce forgetfulness in the minds of those who learn to use it, because they will not practice their memory.